Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. This life is a life of feelings. Each of us shows up to our day-to-day because we either feel a certain way or we seek to change the status of our feelings. Either way, we are feeling our way through each and every moment we experience. And two actions that cause big feelings are rejection and self-confidence. While many believe feeling rejected comes solely from trauma, the most authentic understanding and operation of rejection is much deeper than that. With rejection, our self-confidence fades. With self-confidence, we take rejection for what it is. It's a teacher. To go deeper into this understanding, I sat down with coach and author Amy Wong to take a deep dive into understanding our feelings, getting to the bottom of rejection, figuring out what we stand for in our life, and we even explore how you can own your self-confidence in a way that is long-lasting and it truly becomes a movement in your life. This is a genuine conversation, a conversation filled with life tools that will simply blow you away. So let's dive right in. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. Okay, ladies, today we're talking about something that so many of us experience and experience the lack of it. We're talking fear of rejection and confidence with an amazing expert, Amy Wong. Please introduce yourself. I'm excited. We were chatting just a minute ago about what you do and just our connectivity, and I'm excited. This is going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, super excited, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, my name's Amy Wong, and I have been coaching now for over a decade. I primarily work with leaders and executives, teams, founders, but over the course of the decade, I've really fortunately have had the privilege of being able to work with an incredible range of folks. And, I've had a backstage pass to the inner workings of the mind, with thousands of conversations behind my belt. And, the one thing for certain is that it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. All of us are silently suffering. All of us. Doesn't matter how much you have, how much money you make, how great your life looks on Instagram or on paper. All of us got stuff going on. So, yeah.
What a true statement that is. Let's talk about that, because obviously the root of rejection and confidence comes down to we all have a lot of stuff going on. So how did you become interested in working with people to kind of root out these pieces of our lives?
Great question. It was totally organic. In the kind of the bigger picture here was that, starting at a really young age, very fascinated with the big questions about existence, consciousness. I started meditating at 12. I found Thich Nhat Hanh in the library. I was reading Krishnamurti and other thinkers through high school. So very, very, very enthralled with just this bigger picture of existence and the bigger questions. I also was really drawn to math. And so I studied math at UC Berkeley, and then I became quite technical. I worked at Sun Microsystems for 10 years, but over the course of my life, up until, about 29 years old, I was always in these teaching and facilitating roles because I was so passionate about helping people discover what it was they didn't know that they didn't know about the subject at hand. So I was teaching math at Cal. I was teaching music as well. I'm a pianist as well. And so as much as I loved math, I also recognized, God, I really, really, really love helping people see what it is that's getting them stuck and helping them figure out what the question they need to be asking in order to discover what it is that they need to close the gap. And so after my first child, who is now 14, I had this massive breakthrough. And a lot of moms go through this, a lot of parents go through this because there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing, and I know you know this, there's nothing like having a child to wake you up.
Amen.
And you are confronted with, oh my gosh, who the heck am I?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just, the short form of this is massive breakthrough,
Mm-hmm.
epiphany. And I really, the only way to describe it is a divine download, because it was truly at my lowest moment. And I was hit with this insight, and it changed me. Every part of my being completely reorganized, and I was forever changed. And from that point forward, I navigated entirely different. And the insight that came was, Amy, you're going about this game of life all wrong. It's not about figuring it out, it's about feeling it out.
Mm.
And what hit me in this moment was, oh my gosh, us humans, all we want is a feeling. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Yet we think it's a thing. And so we have goals, we have desires. But the truth is, everything we want and everything we think we want is not for the thing itself. It's because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way.
Right.
And then what happens, we totally get trained away from that, and as children.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start chasing the thing because we've placed all of our trust in this idea that when I finally get the thing, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And so all of us are on this hamster wheel chasing a formula that has been spoon fed us, through our educational system. And then we end up with these great lives on paper, and we wonder why we feel so hollow or unfulfilled. So long story short, because I had this insight, I committed to this point forward. I am completely going to navigate via my inspiration, and I am only going to operate because it feels expansive versus it sounds like a good idea. And so that was, and I still continue to do this today. And my goodness, it is truly like living a miracle, because it is the path of least resistance to the most abundance. And so very quickly, transpersonal psychology as a field found me enthralled, had to study it. My husband's like, what are you going to do with this? And I'm like, I don't know, but I have to study it. This is fascinating. And little did I know, the blend of pure mathematics and transpersonal psychology lended itself perfectly to coaching. So coaching found me in 2010, and then off to the races. And because I am completely committed to following only my inspiration and what feels right in my heart, not what sounds good to my head, I reach for the things that, it kind of feels like, that feeling you get, like that, then the breath got knocked into you, like, yeah. So in the course of coaching, I'm extremely drawn to communication, to communication studies, the neuroscience of the brain as it pertains to communication, as it pertains to trust. And so anything that would cross my awareness, whether it's a book or a conference or a workshop or a certification, I could feel for, I must do this, versus, should do that. That's a good idea. I will never, ever, ever follow that. And so in the course of doing that, everything that I've been fascinated with, it all starts to come together, and these seemingly disparate fields start to come together to tell a congruent, coherent, consilient story. And when I discovered the neuroscience of rejection relative to communication, relative to beliefs and all the other things that I'd been studied around 2014, it was like everything I have been wondering about, working on, playing with clients, all of a sudden it just clicked. And in fact, it was when I discovered the neuroscience of rejection and was able to map it to all of the things I was working on with my clients, that's when I knew it was time to write the book. That's when I know what my book now needs to be. Not time to write it, because my feeling was like, not yet. You're still getting research. You're doing the case studies and the client stories. But I knew, I'm like, okay, final piece, locked in, got it. There it is. So the long answer, but you get the comprehensive one.
The perfect answer. You just described what so many people are chasing after, and it is that feeling. But what you so beautifully said was having the air knocked into you. I mean, purpose, chills, all of it, right? That is what we are chasing, is that feeling of, I want to get up in the morning. Yeah, that deep breath.
Yes.
How do we get there, Amy? That is a big question, right? Let's talk about fear. Let's talk about confidence. How the hell do we get to that space where we are taking a deep, beautiful breath of life?
Yeah. Couple things. So if we break it down, kind of look at it in a sequential process here. The first truth, I guess I would invite people to adopt, right? It's not an objective truth, but you can make it a truth. That what we want is a feeling. Everything you want is for a feeling.
Right.
And so we have to shift our mindset and care way more about feeling now instead of just the things and the strategies that and the goals that we think we have set.
Yeah.
Because, starting at 5 years old, maybe even earlier, we adopt this inner dialogue of, okay, let me do what I'm told so I can make my parents happy. And let me do what I'm told. Okay, let me get good grades so that I can get into a good college. Okay, let me get into a good college so that I can make lots of money. Let me make lots of money so that I can then be happy. And we never really fully take the map all the way because we're not asking the most important question. And so here it is. What do you want to feel? Not what do you want to do? Right?
Exactly. I have to pause you right there because that is the main question that I ask anyone that comes into my office, and anyone who's listened to this podcast knows I have 4 fundamental questions. What do I want? What do I need? The third one being the most important. How do I want to feel?
Yes.
Yeah. We're all chasing the same thing. Okay, please continue. I had to just throw that out there because it's so in line with everything that all of us continue to talk about in this space.
Yeah. Well, and it's just once you really see this, it's so obvious.
Right.
And then and we're completely bamboozled by the craziness of life, and we get caught into the drama of wanting stuff and thinking it's the stuff and the things and the money and the status and the ideas, and we chase the sexiness of these ideas when oftentimes it's completely counter to what we want to feel.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll be working with a client who is convinced that she wants, I've got to get senior VP. I've got it. Like I'm gunning for it. I'm gunning for it. Like it is time. And then, but if you stop and you say, if you're really honest with yourself, what do you want to feel? I want to feel at peace. I want to feel present with my kids. I want to feel happy. I want to feel grounded. I want to feel spacious. I want to feel joy. I want to feel presence. And it's like, okay, cool. And then they know, well, if I take this job, I'm going to report to someone I don't like, but I'll manage. And I'm going to have so much more work on my plate, way bigger scope, but I can do it. And I'm going to have so many more people to write performance reports for. And I'll deal with it when I get there. And it's all completely counter to what they want to feel. So going back to the bigger question, what do you want to feel? Or at least recognizing that feeling is the most important thing.
Right.
That is what guides your behavior. It's what guides your drives. It's what influences your perception, how you make meaning, all the things. So first we want to decide that we care, right? And then the second step is, all right, well, if you care, now you're going to catch when you're not feeling great. Because guess what? That's just an indicator. Don't get mad at yourself. Don't think it's the world's fault that if you're not feeling great. Guess what? That's just a matter of your focus.
Right.
Because whatever we focus on completely determines how we feel. I mean, case in point, if you're done for the day, say today, and you're like, oh, I'm tired, I want to chill out. So you sit down and you turn on the TV. Now, remember back in the day before streaming where we had channels? Remember? Yes. And you turn on the TV and the TV would show whatever the channel was. Right. So let's imagine, you sit down and it was back in the day like that. And you turn on the TV and up pops a horror film. Right. And you're like, ah! And you see blood and guts spewing and chainsaws. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so what would you do if you want to relax and you're seeing this on the screen? You're going to quickly change the channel. Like, I don't want that. So you change the channel because it's going to affect how you feel. Well, our minds are no different. Right. We have channels playing in our head, but we completely forget that we have a remote control in our hand. Right. And so when we're not feeling great, it just means we're stuck on the horror channel. And the way we live is, oh, it's horrors on the TV. I guess I have to watch it. Oh, and then they're miserable. And so what I invite folks to is no, just let it be an indicator that right now, if I'm not feeling great, then chances are I'm on a channel that's not serving me. It's not serving me. And there's so many ways we could take the conversation at this point, but in its most foundational way, these two things are really, really important when we're factoring in just the neuroscience of rejection and this bigger topic of confidence.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we do all live in that space. Well, I don't say all. The majority of people have not come to a space where they realize that they do have their own remote, right? They live in the hamster wheel of what do I need instead of how will that make me feel if I get to point A or point B or point Z, which is exactly what you were just saying.
You know what I'd love to kind of propose, or at least offer, is just this deeper conversation about rejection, because I don't think we're talking about it enough. And in fact, if we taught our children actually what rejection is and how primal this fear of rejection is and how it absolutely determines so much of our perception, so much of how we make interpretations and the beliefs we form, I think the world would be a better place. We would be so much more of a compassionate bunch. So I'd love to take a moment to just kind of break it down.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So again, I was blown away when I was able to kind of put all this stuff together and see the bigger picture. And taking a step back, when you think about what it means to be a human and what the human condition and what the human experience is like, you take a human and you look at it in its entirety, right? So when a human is born, a human's born survival brain dominant.
Right.
So we're born neurologically underdeveloped. And that's just how it goes, no problem.
Right.
So that's a fact. Fact number one. Fact number two, in order to fit through the birth canal, right? Because the type of mammal that we are, to fit through the birth canal, we are really helpless. Right. And so when when you give birth to a baby, that baby doesn't run down the hospital corridor, like looking for berries, like, oh, quick, go catch the baby. Humans are entirely helpless for the first couple of years of life. They absolutely, totally, completely need caregiver to survive. So when you put these facts together, here's what you start to see. Fact number one, you're born hardwired to survive. Okay. That's a survival brain. Fact number two, you need mom or dad to survive. So if you look at those together, then now you have to ask, well, then what's death to the brain? Now we've been taught it's lack of food, water, shelter, basic survival needs. And to some large degree, that's true. You're not going to survive if you don't have food, water, or shelter. But to the human brain, that's not primary. Right. Because to the brain, it's okay, food, water, shelter will follow if mom and dad buy in. So therefore, what is most important to the brain is acceptance, approval, and belonging. And here it goes. Therefore, death to the human brain is rejection.
Because we don't have safety, which is what we are always
seeking. Always. And that brain is constantly, on a non-conscious level, is constantly seeking safety, right? Whether you know it or like it or not. So this wiring exists in us that has us completely repelling any kind of rejection on a conscious but more so non-conscious level. That wiring exists from the moment we are born to the day that we die. Right. Now, when we're young, I'll map it out. When we're young, we feel it more severely than we do when we're older, because when we're older, we have developed brain and logic and reasoning, and we can start to tell stories to make sense of things. But the neurobiology of the pain of rejection exists. So something a lot of people don't know is that rejection literally feels like physical pain, because it registers in what's called the pain matrix, which is unlike any other emotion that we might have. Right. And so notice, when we have any experience of rejection, whether it's we didn't get the job offer, or we got turned down by the person we really liked, or, we didn't get accepted to XYZ. Notice how we talk about it. Oh, God, it hurts. Oh, I'm crushed. Yeah. Oh, and we talk about it this way because it literally does hurt. So I always share, especially in workshops when I'm talking about this stuff, I always share a side note. So if any of y'all are dealing with rejection in any way, shape, or form, you can take a Tylenol because it targets the same place and it actually helps.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that idea.
And so, so that's interesting. But the bigger story here is that, the brain is constantly trying to keep you alive. That's one of its primary jobs. Yeah. And the brain can't differentiate between environmental threats and social threats. To the brain, it's the same. So in other words, if a tiger's jumping out of a bush, you have to fight or flight. Right. But if a boss throws you under the bus in a meeting, to the brain, it's just like the same. And it's got the same neurochemical effects that, create these trajectories that we then walk down. And so when we talk about confidence, so why are we bringing this up? When we talk about confidence, we have to recognize that a lot of what eats away at our confidence is this fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Because think about it. We all have, if we stop and we poll everybody, what are you most afraid of? We're going to hear things like, I'm afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Right. I'm afraid of judgment. I'm afraid of humiliation. I'm afraid of looking bad. Right. I'm afraid of public speaking. All of this maps back to some fear of social isolation or rejection.
Right.
And so we can start to be easier on ourselves when we recognize, oh, this is what's going on in the bigger picture. And it's not just me.
Right.
Every single person's feeling it.
Right.
And guess what? Even if they say they don't care what people think,
they
do.
do.
They do.
Yeah.
It's fundamental. Yeah.
Right. I always say that rejection is the lack of safety, whether it is perceived or actually factual. And it's very important that we recognize that noise is noise. It doesn't matter how we're perceiving it. And you're absolutely right. Where we feel the pain is the exact same place that we're processing the emotion of rejection, of confidence, even, because the two are the equal of one another a lot of times. So if we look at that and we start to root down, as you said, okay, we're feeling it the same way. How do we step out of it?
Yeah. But I just want to comment. I love that you map that safety really is what we're seeking. And like safety, that sense of trust and safety, that's life to the brain. Rejection's death to the brain. And so that is fundamental, is how do we get to that sense of safety with one another? Well, if we want to action confidence, or at least we want to embody more confidence, I've got a really powerful kind of 4-step process that helps people immediately shift into a mindset that is of authentic confidence. And it kind of goes like this. So taking a step back, in every moment in time, each and every one of us in every moment is always standing for something. But we're usually not aware of what we're standing for. And what I mean by that is that in every moment, there exists a primary underlying objective that we're holding, but it doesn't usually live in the conscious. It's there. So for example, you and I are having this conversation. And if I didn't know what I know right now, I could ultimately be standing for impressing you. And that could be my ultimate underlying objective underneath everything happening right now. Or I could ultimately be standing for you liking me. And that's my primary objective. Or I could ultimately be standing for getting business. And that could be my underlying objective, right? Or let's be clear, I could be standing for connection and empowerment and joy and growth and all these things, which is what I'm very much standing for. Now, all of us have an underlying objective in a moment. And for a lot of us, when we're feeling anxiety, when we're feeling hesitation, when we're the opposite of confidence, let's be clear, anything that's not confidence, that's just a cue. It's an indicator that in this now moment, I'm standing for something I'm not choosing, and I really don't mean to be. It's just an indicator that the focus, the stance has shifted. So for example, here's another example. I coach a lot of people on executive presence and communication, and something that comes up often is feedback. How do you give hard feedback? Now, across the board, nobody likes to give hard feedback. And in fact, sometimes it can be so hard for folks, they don't even do it. But check this out. It's only hard. It's only challenging if in this moment of opportunity, if I have an opportunity to give you feedback, Danielle, and it's really hard for me, all that means, I'm using my feeling as my guide. Remember going back to those truths I offered. I'm using feeling of my guide. If I'm not feeling empowered about this, that's just a sign that in this moment, I'm standing for avoiding conflict. I'm standing for you liking me. I'm standing for protecting you from your feelings. I am not standing for your growth. So really what this is about is recognizing that each of us has a spotlight that we get to control, but it often shifts on its own. Why? Because the pull of the subconscious brain seeking safety and avoiding rejection is so strong that it is often going to default and shift on its own without your conscious knowing. And in a moment, your brain might want to protect you over being really clued into what this is really about.
Right.
And so you use your feeling as your guide. So let's talk about public speaking. So here's a good one, confidence. A lot of people feel really nervous about getting in front of a lot of people and speaking.
Right.
Now, I'm talking nervous, not nerves like adrenaline. That's healthy. That's wanted. That's all great. But the nervousness that we can get succumb by where we start sweating and we start forgetting what we're going to say and all that stuff. Again, that's just a symptom.
Right.
When we get in front of people to speak, and if we're nervous, lack of confidence, it's just a cue. That in this moment, my spotlight has shifted. But here's the cool thing, like you get to control it.
Right.
And so if you care about how you feel, like, oh, my spotlight has shifted. And so let's just be honest. If you're nervous, go, whoa, okay, whoa. I'm nervous because I'm standing for something that I'm not really choosing and it's not serving me. Oh my gosh, I'm standing for looking good. I'm standing for proving myself. I'm standing for avoiding judgment. I'm standing for me.
Right.
And that's where we spin out. The lack of confidence is purely an unintentional focus on self for the means of safety or protection that we are not choosing, that's completely eating up our bandwidth for impact, for connection and influence. And so here's the 4-step process. Kind of already shared it before. Step number 1, you got to care about how you feel. How you feel is telling you how you're doing. Step number 2, catch when you're not feeling great. Because the thing is, if you're feeling good, keep going. No need to stop. But if you're feeling off, that's just a sign that, bonus step 3, not totally necessary, but helpful. Bonus step 3 is just be honest. Just what are you standing for?
Right.
Because if you're not feeling great, if you're feeling nervous, anxiety, hesitation, whatever, it's just a sign that your stance is off. Not because you did it, it happened. So then you're like, oh boy, I'm standing for being right. I do this with my husband all the time. Confession. Like I will catch myself standing for winning over standing for harmony any day. And I'm like, Amy, why are you doing that? And then as a parent, I'll find myself sometimes standing for principle instead of standing for connection and growth, and even in benign ways, like if I've got a keynote to give, if I'm starting to feel anxiety, I'll recognize, might not even be that I'm standing for looking good. I might be that I'm standing for doing it right.
Right.
That's not helpful. I've got to stand for, and here it is, step number 4. What is this really about? And you've got to choose the noble stance that has nothing to do with you, because here's the truth. It has not, it ain't about you.
Right.
It ain't about you. It never is, and it never will be. And this is such a sobering and relieving fact for people to realize nobody's thinking about you.
Right.
And it's not about you. And if people say, well, Amy, hold on, what about that job interview? It is about proving myself. And I say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You are standing for mutual fit. You are standing for realizing possibility. You are standing for synergy. You are not standing for proving yourself. And the moment you instead stand for proving yourself, you've lost. You've lost.
Yeah.
You got to go bigger. So step 4 is where you've got to like, what is this about? Oh, so Danielle, this is about your growth. If I've got feedback, this is about your growth. This is about our mutual success, right? This is about joy. This is about a call to action. This is about empowerment. I don't know. You decide, but you've got to shift the spotlight. And so genuine confidence is when we harness the spotlight and we totally shift it to the noble objective and we completely take ourselves out of the equation.
Yeah.
And when you understand the mechanism by which the stance shifts because you get the neurobiology of rejection, it's a heck of a lot easier. And so this is a moment by moment practice, and it's fun, but it's a practice.
Yeah. It's very much like what I teach about really recognizing the thought process and then how we're connecting to that emotionally. I love the idea of putting a spotlight on it every moment, right? Like, what's the true intentionality of what I'm doing and how I'm showing up?
Yeah.
I can hear the women that are listening saying, okay, I can do that. That feels good. That feels easier than, perhaps I thought it was. What is the makeup of the spotlight though?
Oh, it's attention, right? It's your absolute, it's your attention. So, when we think about awareness and attention, awareness can be diffuse, right? So I can be aware of my surroundings in a diffuse way. That's just awareness. But focus, it's the difference between like a floodlight and a spotlight.
Right.
And so that spotlight, that attention, it's where am I going to direct my thoughts? Very much goes back to this having a remote control in your hand.
Right.
All right. It's you get to choose where you're going to put that focal point. What am I going to focus on? What am I going to make this about? And that's probably a better way of putting it. What am I going to make this about?
Yeah.
Am I going to make this about looking good? Am I going to make this about being right? Or am I going to make this about love? I'm going to make this about mutual success. I'm going to make this about joy. I'm going to make this about growth. And I'll tell you, the moment you wake up to this and you just, this very subtle shift in, oh, yeah, I'm going to make this about joy. And kid you not, it's kind of like a Looney Tunes cartoon where all of a sudden you're like, shoo, and 100% of your resources now get channeled into that very crystal clear focal point. And that is power, and not power over, but power with, its freedom, its impact. And truth be told, Danielle, I do a ton of coaching on executive presence. This is executive presence.
Yeah.
It's not a set of techniques. It's not like, oh, shoulders back, project your voice. It's not that.
Right.
It's the ability to be so focused on the ultimate noble objective and that you've completely taken yourself out of the equation.
Right.
That is influence. Yeah.
May I add as well that I believe that not only is it focus, but it's also self-acceptance, that it is not about you, but also about what is happening in the moment, and in that intentionality, choosing what will bring the entire sphere of what you're working on and working with and through and feeling to that next empowered level.
Well said. Yeah. I'd be remiss to focus on the kind of the corollary here, which went right to, which is, so many of us are worried about judgment. Yeah. So many are worried about how people are perceiving us.
Right.
And this is where I'm going to give you all permission to just let yourself off the hook, because honestly, at the end of the day, who's everybody thinking about?
Themselves.
And I don't care, even if you are giving that TED talk up on stage and you're so worried that they're judging you, honestly, they're thinking, when is this over?
Right.
Shoot, exactly. I get to the, I got to go pick up my kids. My grandma's sick. They're not thinking about you. And even if they are, it doesn't even matter, because remember, gosh, full circle, here we go. Mapping back to that first quote, be kind, for everyone you meet's fighting hard battle. We're all silently suffering.
Right.
And we can really embrace our humanity, recognizing everybody's doing the darn best they can with all that they have. And just let yourself off the hook, because nobody really cares. Right. And I mean, here it is. And let's just be really humbling. I mean, you're not that important so much that you're going to distract them away from their own concerns and needs for acceptance, approval, belonging, and safety.
Yeah. So. I recently had somebody ask me what the key to success or my personal success was. And it's something that it feels very poignant to share right now. And I said, and live my life through and believe that I wake up every day to serve. And if I receive a benefit from it, fantastic. It's a great day. If I receive nothing from it, that nothingness will turn into something another day. That's right. And isn't that really how we all should be living? Oh my gosh, so much peace. So much peace. Right?
That was so beautifully said. And that just touched my heart. And I think you're spot on. I talk about this a lot. It's really it's the path from self to service.
Yeah.
And, it sounds like such a cliche, and we hear about these studies on joy and, it's like we want to focus on others, but until we can actually derive what that means for ourselves, it's going to fall flat.
Right.
But, hopefully what we're talking about here is that bridge to help people understand, yeah, your freedom and your joy absolutely comes from shifting the spotlight off you and onto service.
Right.
Onto service. Like how can we benefit humanity? How does this do the most good for the most people? Yeah.
Right. And inside of that, kind of disposition is letting go of rejection and leaning into confidence. You can't have that without knowing that something more will come for you.
Yeah.
Regardless, right? So can
Yeah.
we talk a little bit deeper about confidence?
Yeah.
It's something that most women struggle with. You know, we are the task makers of all things, really. And when we get into our heads, just like you were describing, you know, oh, I can do that. If I do this, then it'll be fine. I can handle that. We never stop to think about one, the impact, like you were talking about, and two, what does this do to our mindset long term as we take on more and more and more? Will it tank my confidence or will it bring me to a place of greatness?
There's a couple things. This is where I think it's really relevant to bring back this feeling variable, because
Right.
again, it's always about feeling. And so if we're taking on more and more,
Right.
you're going to thrive and succeed if you're doing this because you must. It feels amazing and you're super inspired and this gives you energy and it feels expansive.
Right.
Then more power to you. Take it on.
Right.
The moment we take it on because we think we should, that's when things start to go the other way.
Right.
And so even in my book, this is everybody's favorite chapter. It's chapter 4. It's titled, I Should You Not. And it is a deep dive into how insidious. I actually think should is the worst word in the English language.
I am with you. I always say that. I would love to extract it from our language completely. I hate that word.
Completely. You know, and nobody really stops to question why. In fact, actually, I did a query to see if any studies have been done on this. There's not been one that I can find. And all of the queries I've done, there's a ton of studies with should used operatively in the title, but there's only one recently. It was done in 2018. And the paper was titled, Does Could Lead to Good? The experiment was, let's replace could for should.
Right.
And what they found was that you generate a lot more moral insight and, you know, creativity and discovery-based solutions. But what's fascinating to me is there's no talk on why. So I have a big hypothesis as to why, and I really break it down. But just right here, right now, should 100%, let's say 98% of the time, if we're using should, we're actually we're pushing away the things we don't want versus actually reaching for what we actually do want. And that's what causes us to feel icky or burdened or guilty or bad. And remember, everything we want is for a feeling. And so should really kind of takes us on the wrong path. That's the figuring it out. I should be doing this because if I follow this path, it's going to get me to the right place. And so if you do that long enough and you feel, and you're below the neutral line in your emotional state, that's going to eat away at anybody's self-esteem and confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 words that you just hit on. Should, are you talking about can? And if you're talking about can, are you talking about can't or won't? Right? Like breaking everything down into that feeling base. Like I should do this. Okay. Can you do it? Does it feel good to do that? Yeah. Okay. Then it's not a should, it's a must.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can't, are you sure that it's not a won't? I won't do that because I don't want to feel this.
Yeah.
Good or bad. Right. And so if we look at those pieces, it's so important. And of course, it does work towards that fear, rejection, and confidence as well.
Absolutely. I talk very similarly. I mean, the counter for me is want. It's like, because should really is about pushing away negative consequences. So if I'm focused on avoiding negative consequences, like for example, if I say I should go to the gym, right? In my awareness, talk about spotlight, right? So my spotlight is not on health and youthfulness and longevity and flexibility and energy. My spotlight is on, oh my gosh, my jeans are fat. Or my jeans are tight and I feel fat. Right. And so then we say, I should go to the gym because you're pushing away negative consequences. And that feels like you're looking at stuff you don't want, which feels really draining. And so what's the flip to that? Well, it's not so much what I want to avoid. What is it that I want to create? What do I want to feel? And there we go back to that. What do I want to feel?
Right.
And that, so in that, when you realize, oh, I want to feel youthful, I want to feel, and so then you'll have the insight, oh, then I will go hiking instead, or I can go swimming with my friend, or we open up to all these different insights and path of least resistance.
That is actually where I was headed next, because I think that's something that is talked about in the scope of mindfulness. Most people do not practice the path of least resistance. It is
Yes.
about feeling. It's about intentionality. It's about purpose.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that just for a few moments. What does
Mhm.
that mean to you, the
Oh
path
my
against
gosh.
resistance?
I am so glad you're in here. This is one of my favorite conversations. Well, I'm just going to break it down very simply. This is
Mm,
where my math major is going to come in. I'm like, let's just look at this logically here.
yes.
Now, if we take every emotion and map it on a vertical scale,
Hmm.
and, we like positive emotion is above the neutral line, negative emotion is below the neutral line.
Right.
Positive, it's increasing in positivity, negative is increasing in negativity. Everything below neutral is caused by one thing. And it
Mm,
doesn't matter if it's as minor as annoyance or as big as revenge.
right.
Every single gradient of negative emotion is simply you in your reality now moment resisting what is.
Yeah.
The moment you resist what is and push against reality, you drop below neutral. And to the
Right.
degree that you push is to the degree that you're negative. And this is such an eye opener for folks because you can see that all of the suffering that we experience is completely self imposed.
Yes.
We want to think it's in the system. Oh, it's traffic. Traffic causes negativity. And I'm like, well,
Right.
I'd love to agree with you, but the truth is, it's not the traffic, it's your
Mhm.
relationship to the traffic.
Your connectivity to it.
Yep. It's
Absolutely.
like, are you pushing against it or are you just letting it be? And that's really going to determine where you are on
Mhm.
on the spectrum. And the way in which we resist, like if it's in the present moment, that's pretty obvious and that's easy to
Right.
catch, right? So for example, if I just vacuumed the house and then now there's a bunch of dog hair all over the house, I'm like, ugh, I just vacuumed, right? So that's obvious, overt resistance. It's like it's here, I
Uh-huh.
don't want it. But we resist more subtly than that, right? Because we
Mhm.
tend to do it in the past. We think about the past and push against it. That's regret and remorse.
Yeah.
Or we tend to think about the future and push against it. That's anxiety.
Right.
Or it's judgment, right? So I should
Mhm.
be different, you should be different, this should be different. And
Right.
those are the ways in which we resist. And the reason, I love that you brought this up because beyond just caring about this because dropping resistance is going to help you float up the scale, it's a bigger, there's more to the story. Yeah, I
Mhm.
want you to feel good, but this is a bandwidth issue.
Right.
Because if you're
Yeah.
pushing against, you're using resources. So not only are you negative, you're below that neutral line, you're actively employing resources and channeling them in a direction that does absolutely nothing. It's like
Right.
me holding out a weight while I'm having this conversation with you. It's like, well,
Right.
does this help me? No, it just eats up my ability to be connected. So,
Mhm.
path of least resistance truly is the short, easy, fun path to the most abundance and most joy. And by the way, that's what we all want. So,
Right.
there you go.
And outside of that is everything else that we were talking about: rejection, lack of confidence, lack of joy, lack of happiness, all of the things, right? If
Yeah.
we are going to resist what is, we
Hmm.
resist being present,
Yep.
and then we resist where we're supposed to be at that moment.
Hmm.
So
Which is here.
important.
Just
Yeah,
right here,
right
right
here.
now. Right here, right now.
Mhm. Right,
In this beautiful, glorious, magnificent now moment,
right.
which so few of us actually abide in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. In fact, let's talk about that for just a moment, because I believe that when we stop and we're present and we are aware, that builds confidence, right?
Oh,
It
yes.
teaches us to slow. It teaches us that pause. It
Hmm.
teaches us that within these moments, we have the ability to reach up that 22, emotional scale. And so what are some of your ways that we could stop and pause and be in that present moment and out of that resistance?
I'm I'm so glad you bring this up because this is truly probably the most important thing we can do for ourselves.
Mhm.
If we want to employ and focus on try any of the stuff that we're talking about, it requires getting to this level in the conversation, which has to do with presence because our
Mhm.
power is in the present moment.
Right.
And it's in this moment that I have the ability to choose my response versus react to something. And so, I have on my website, and maybe you can include this in the show
Mhm.
notes. I have a I have a process. It's a text-based process. It's pretty fun. You can go to the resources tab and it's a free exercise where you download the guide and it steps you through and you sign up via text. And once a day I'll text you randomly And it's really, it's to check in with yourself. And then you get a scale, like, where am I in this now moment? So answering your question, like how can we wake up to being more present? So little things like this can help. And that's why I devised that really fun, very simple process. But the reason this is important is because when we drop into the now moment, we realize that all is well. And this is all that's real. And in this now moment, I am resourceful. I am capable. And we can feel an innate sense of belonging to self and wholeness and completeness. And the only way we're going to feel that is in the now moment. And the moment you can feel that, like, right, all that's real is right now. And right now is great. And I've got capability right now. I've got competency right now. Oh, yeah, nobody's dying. Nothing's falling apart. Right. And just that hit of wisdom can do so much to pull us back from those crazy narratives that just that steal away our confidence.
Important question to ask yourself in those moments is, am I living in my head, or am I living through my emotional body, through my existence, through where I am right here, right now? If you can determine those things, you actually activate the reward system in your brain, and you start to feel that dopamine, serotonin, and really start to kind of move through that experience like, wow, I can do this. And that's where we want you.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I'm so passionate about this. My inspiration has led me to go through certification for mindfulness meditation, teacher certification, because, not to totally switch gears, but to just have it in my toolbox, because this is what we're talking about. I mean, if I could wish anything for humans on earth, it's the gift of mindfulness.
Yeah, agreed.
Honestly, because from that comes self-love, compassion, wisdom, insight. It's from that ground of awareness. That's where healing begins. Yeah.
Exactly. I did the exact same thing. I decided that I was going to have to teach meditation and mindfulness, because we can't get to true healing without those pieces. We just can't.
100%.
It's just impossible, right? We can get to all of those places, right, where we are moving through life. We're trying to knock down our goals. We're on that edge of rejection, on that edge of not having confidence. But until we hit that presence, hit that least resistance, man, we're not living on purpose.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Speaking of living on purpose, tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So this book, I love it so much. It's helping so many folks. And that's really, it's all I wanted was to take what I'm doing in sessions that are it's wildly helping people, and be able to offer it in book form for everyone. And it won Book of the Year last year, which is great.
Hey,
super excited about. Yeah, thank you. And it'll be a year. It will have been released a year and on May 27th. So it's been a year out there, which is awesome. But this book, the subtitle is 5 Deliberate Choices to Realize Fulfillment and Joy. And what I really appreciate about our conversation is we've somewhat organically touched upon these 5 choices, or you can call them perceptual shifts, that we can make that unlock our ability to flourish. So many of us think that it's about moving the pieces around of this game board. And if I could just get it right, if I could just get this amount of money, then I'll be happy. But that's a trap that will never, ever, ever, ever lead to true inner peace and fulfillment and joy. So the book, Living on Purpose, is, when it was time to write it, I knew, my inspiration said, here we go. And it was just effortless at that point, because I knew. And it's a collection of research, stories, client stories. And really, my friends have said, Amy, it kind of reads like the most delightful math proof, but it's not a math proof. It's just like, it's so logical. You're like, oh my gosh, you build and you make such a strong argument for why these shifts not only are fundamental and important, but like how it's so easy to do. And so, not to freak anyone out, please hear me. It does not read like a math book. It's just, I'm a big fan of strong argument and logic in order to really, paint a picture. If I'm going to offer you something, I want you to feel like, wow, I must do this.
I can't wait to read it. What's so interesting is that you said something that a lot of people have said to me, and I completely agree with what you just said. Emotions are not logical, therefore you cannot put fact-based to them. And I've heard it over and over again. I'm like, nope, you're wrong. You are so wrong. I'm sorry. You
So
are
right.
wrong.
Yes. Oh, big fist bump to you, friend.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. We got this. I'm like, no, 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 no. There's always a logical explanation to what you're feeling, right? To your emotions. You just haven't done the work to figure out the definition in which you are connecting to. That's
Yes.
the thing.
Which
That's
requires awareness,
Thank you.
curiosity, getting in your body, being in the
right.
moment. Yeah. This all connects.
Exactly. We're going to put your book, that great movement for present awareness with a text on our website and in the show notes. I don't want this conversation to end, but I know we are running into a time issue. So anything that we missed that you feel is essential for women to know?
You know, this came up for me this morning, and I'll share it today because it feels my inspiration saying. Let's just say it. You know, it's so easy to take all this in and get and feel inspired by stuff we're talking about, but then feel overwhelmed. Right. And then line up with this idea that, oh my gosh, there is so much to be done in order to free myself. Mm-hmm. And then we fall into this trap of, oh my gosh, it took me decades to get here with all this conditioning. It's going to take me decades to get out of this conditioning. And this is where I just say, you know, this is fun. Yeah. If we just decide that life, if it just take on this mindset that all of this is fun and your inner wisdom will guide you, and this is meant to be a game. It's not meant to be hard or heavy, and you're doing the best you can with all that you got. Take the things that inspired you, focus on those, and just let your inner wisdom guide you the rest of the way. Don't let it overwhelm you, but just know that when you decide that this is fun, it's the path of least resistance to the most abundance.
It is the place where those who follow this lifestyle, because it really is a choice of living, we find great success. Like you said, abundance. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I end the podcast the same way with every single guest as I do in my personal life when people are in front of me. What are 3 gratitudes for you? Doesn't matter where it's coming from or how you derived at it. What are 3 things that you are innately grateful for?
Well, this is cheating, but I can't. I mean, the moment you said grateful, I mean, just my amazing, beautiful family just popped immediately in my head, brings a tear to my eye. I'm just God, I love my family so much, my husband and my 2 children. And they're just phenomenal humans. I'm just so grateful. So I'm very grateful for that. And that's cheating because everybody says that, but I really mean it. So
they really don't, actually.
Like, gosh, I'm so grateful for that. The other thing that comes up for me is that I'm just so grateful that I'm on the path that I'm on. I'm just so grateful for my, my passion, my curiosity. I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to have learned what I've learned and to embark on this journey to help others. I just feel blessed. So can we say blessed, gratitude? Is that the same?
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And then I would say the third thing that I'm grateful for, I'll just say it, my health. It's the fact that I'm able to show up and be of service and not be distracted by health is, I don't take that for granted at all. Right. And I'm very grateful for that.
Beautiful threes. Beautiful threes. Thank you, Amy, for what a beautiful conversation, for some new thoughts, and to exploring letting go of rejection, finding confidence, and finding that golden path of least resistance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So many fantastic insights can be taken away from this truly amazing conversation. If you know what you stand for and you live intentionally, the road of least resistance is the road that you travel down. You don't have to seek. You're already there. If you want to connect with, read on purpose, or have access to Amy's text prompts, you can find more information on her website, www.alwaysonpurpose.com. And you can follow her on Instagram at Amy Eliza Wong. Additional links are available in the show notes and on my website, getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips, You can follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and now Clapper. You can also visit the show notes, our blog, and my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. And please feel free to rate and share this episode with those who may need it. I also invite you to check out the new 15-day affirmation course where I take you on a journey through how your brain chemistry and your greatest desires can be matched together to create positive and beneficial affirmations. It's available to start right now, and it's linked in our show notes. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.